Hello, and welcome to lesson number 3. This lesson is all about positioning and posing your baby. You might be asking, how do I pose this thing? It can't even hold its head up yet. The short answer is you don't have to do a whole lot. I'm going to teach you the basic poses in this lesson. And in lesson 4, we'll be talking more about how to position your camera to get a variety of different photos from that one position that you put your baby in. The first pose that I love is having the baby all swaddled up. You may already know that there are several different ways to swaddle up your baby, but the way that I like to swaddle up baby for photos is something that I call the square swaddle. After this video is done, go ahead and check out the video below this one about how to do the square swaddle. I could talk you through it, but I think it'll be easier for you to watch it. The reason why I like the square swaddle is because you can slowly tweak it while you're taking your photos to get a large variety of shots. A great place to take the photos of your baby while they're all swaddled up is in the bassinet. We talked about it in the last lesson, but make sure you push the bassinet close to the window to get the best light. To create clean and beautiful images, it's best to remove all the clutter from the bassinet. Chances are there's going to be some stuff in there that you might not want in your photos. There's probably going to be some paperwork, one of those suction bulbs, maybe a wipe, a thermometer, all kinds of things. So take a minute, clear out the clutter, so all you see is your beautiful baby. You can leave a few things in there if you'd like to tell their story, like their name card is always cute to have in there for a couple of photos. When photographing babies all swaddled up, I start with them tightly swaddled. After a few shots, I'll loosen up one of the layers, that way one of baby's hands can pop out. Now, there's some babies who aren't happy when they have their hands out, or they'll have their hand covering their face the whole time. If that's your baby, snap a few of them doing that. But you can always tuck it back in if it's just too much of a nuisance. This is also the perfect time to get those feet photos. Leaving the swaddle tucked in around the sides of the baby, unwrap the bottom of the swaddle and open it up. You'll be able to see those cute little feet. I like to let those little feet just lay there naturally on the open blanket, but if they're squirming around too much, you can wrap the blanket around their feet to help keep it together. Now, if you can't figure out the swaddle, or you keep trying and it's just a mess and you're about to cry because your hormones are all over the place and you haven't slept, do not stress. Your nurse can help you out. They're swaddling experts. And a great time to ask for your nurse to help you out is after they come in and check on your baby. Like after a set of vitals, you can always ask your nurse to swaddle them up in your special blanket because you'd love to take some photos afterwards. They will be happy to help. And I'm sure they'll do a beautiful job too. They do this all day long. So let's take a look at some examples of babies that I have photographed all swaddled up. You can see that I love photographing in the bassinet. It's truly iconic and it helps tell their origin story. Notice that all the bassinets have been cleaned of any items that the baby might have collected during their first few days. This allows us to focus on their fresh faces and not be distracted by clutter. I love to take photos of babies with and without their hats. If your baby has a lot of hair, I hope you didn't have much heartburn, but don't be afraid to cover it up for a few photos. It's a way to quickly add variety to your images without having to mess with baby too much. The next pose that I love to have baby in is to have them loosely unwrapped. To do this, choose a swaddle or blanket that you'd like to use. If you don't have one, use a clean hospital sheet. Oftentimes, there will be spares in your room. If not, you can always call your nurse and ask them to bring one. A white hospital sheet photographs really well. You'll see examples of this in a minute. Now that you have your blanket, lay it down on a safe, flat surface that you will be photographing your baby on. This can be at the foot of your bed, their bassinet, a couch near the window. Make sure the space is large enough so that baby is safe. If the blanket has a pattern, make sure that side is facing up. This is going to act as your backdrop behind baby's head. Go ahead and lay baby down on the blanket. Make sure you leave enough space above their head so that it will fill up the frame when you take the photos. Next, take either the bottom edge or the side of the blanket and fold it over baby to cover them up a little bit. Make sure you lay the blanket on your baby and fold it so that the upside of the blanket is showing. We don't want to see the back side if it's not as cute or it looks like the back side of it. So if is exposing that, just give it another fold. That way we see the top of the blanket. But I don't like having just a flat, sharp edge next to baby's face, so it's always nice to blah, 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 blah. The next pose that I love to have baby in is to have them loosely unwrapped. To do this, choose a swaddle or blanket that you would love to use for the photos. If you don't have one, you can use a clean hospital sheet. Oftentimes there'll be spares in your rooms, but if you don't have one, you can always call your nurse and ask them to bring in a clean sheet. A white hospital sheet photographs really well, and you'll see some examples of this in a minute. But let's talk a little bit more about how to set this up. Now that you have your blanket, lay it down on a flat, safe surface that you'll be photographing your baby on. This can be the foot of your bed, in their bassinet, on the couch near the window. Make sure the space is large enough so that baby is safe. And if the blanket has a pattern, have that side facing up. This is going to act as your backdrop behind baby's head. Go ahead and lay the baby down on the blanket and make sure you have enough space above their head so that it'll fill up the frame. Next, you can take either the bottom edge or the side of the blanket and you're loosely going to cover up baby with this. We want to make sure that the pattern side or the top of the blanket is exposed. So all you need to do when you fold it over baby, just give it one more fold. That way we can see that beautiful pattern that you have. Or if you don't have a pattern on it and it looks the same on front and back, it doesn't really matter much. Just kind of drape it over baby till it looks nice. Now that you have baby laying on the blanket with some of it wrapped around them, at this point I like to fluff up the blanket a little bit. That way it looks kind of flowy around them. This is especially helpful if the blanket that you're using has some wrinkles on it. Fluffing the edges will help hide those little imperfections. If you have a knit blanket or something without wrinkles, it's always nice to do some with the blanket flattened out too. This makes your baby look like it's on just one super soft pillow. Make sure you don't overstretch it and create some tugging lines. Now, let's take a look at some examples of this pose. Let's look at the black and white photo on the left. Now, this isn't taken on a flat surface, but instead it's taken in mom's arms. This is a great spot if you have a baby that just really wants to be held and you really want to get those shots. So let your partner hold the baby and then loosely unwrap them in their arms. You can get those cute little detail pictures while your little one gets the snuggles that they desire. Take a look at the blue blanket one. This blanket doesn't have wrinkles, so I took a second to flatten it out at the edges so that it looks like a nice, solid, flat surface. This gives the image a super clean and nice look. Next to it, you can see that there is a minimal amount of billowing happening in this blanket. That's just to add a little softness to it and break up the hard lines of the plaid. I didn't go crazy fluffing it around, but just made it look nice and soft. And lastly, take a look at the photo with the white blanket. This is a hospital sheet. If you look closely next to the baby's elbows, you can see him swaddled. You can see those little tiny little folds right next to his elbow. For this one, I loosely unwrap the swaddle while keeping him in it. And then I laid the hospital sheet on the bed, placed him on that hospital sheet, then loosely folded the bottom edge up and over baby. This is a great transition to make without having to mess with baby too much. Just to show you, this is the same baby all swaddled up, one shot, and then moved to the bed. By simply covering the swaddle and adding a hat, I was able to make a completely different photo without a whole lot of work. The last pose that I truly love is getting your hands involved in the shot. No, I'm not talking about accidentally having your finger covering part of the lens when you take the photo. I'm talking about actually intentionally photographing your hands with your baby. So it's time for you or your partner to become a hand model. This is a heartwarming and easy way to quickly change up any pose that your baby might be in. It is really great because it shows scale. There are several ways to get your hands involved. I like to start off by having the parent, who's the hand model, stand or sit next to the baby's feet. And baby's head is going to be farthest away from them. They can simply just kind of rest their forearms next to baby and wrap their hands around baby's head. No need to pick up baby or lift their head at all. Just holding their head nice and gentle is all that they need to be doing. Next, after I gotten a few of those shots, I'll ask the parent to move one of the hands onto baby's chest. This really shows scale. I love this one because it can be replicated later as baby gets older, like when they're 1 month old, when they're 5 months old. You can put your hand on their chest, take that photo again, and you can see just how much they've grown since then. Now, you don't need to get too posy with this. Like, don't worry too much about your hands. Just move them around naturally. Or if you're having somebody else take the photo or be the hand model and you're taking the photos, just tell them, just move them around naturally. Just scoot one hand down, just hold baby. Don't worry too much about that. And this is also a really great way to have your hand model or partner hold baby's hands and feet too. First, let's talk about getting those great baby hand photos. The moneymaker detail is seeing your baby's fingernails. If we're seeing the back of the hand, it's not nearly as cute as seeing their super tiny and sometimes strangely long fingernails. The trick that I found that works out best for getting this is have your partner hold baby's forearm with their index finger pretty much in the palm of baby's hand. Eventually, baby's natural reflexes will be to grip onto that finger, and then when they do that, you'll be able to see their cute little fingernails. And this is an easy way for the person who's holding baby's hand to control it a little bit. So if you need to rotate a little bit or move it up or down, you have that control. You don't want to point just one finger at baby. Not only does it look awkward, but it's harder for you to get the shot because you don't have the control. Baby has control. They decide if they want to grip onto it or they decide if they want to let go. When you're in the other position, holding onto baby's forearms, even if they let go of their grip, they're going to go back into that gripping mode eventually, but you don't have to wrangle their hands back. Now, there's also several great ways to get feet, but my favorite one is similar to holding baby's head. So instead of standing by baby's feet and holding their head, you're going to stand by baby's head and hold their feet. Just like you did with the head, you can rest your forearms on the side next to baby, and you're just going to cup your hands together and hold up baby's feet. Now, we want to make sure that when you're holding baby's feet for these photos, you're not covering up all the cute little details of the bottom of the foot and then just seeing their tiny little toes peek out over your giant hands. We want to be able to see the bottom of their feet. So make sure that you're holding them up from the heel. And maybe your baby has a Band-Aid on their heel. That's totally fine. I don't recommend taking those off because it can look really funny. We've all had Band-Aids on, and once you take it off, you can see it's like paler and it looks moist and kind of gross. So instead of having that, what I like to do is just use your thumb and cover up that Band-Aid. So you can easily cover it up because it's nice and small with part of your hand. So again, make sure you just don't cover up baby's feet when you're getting this detail. Here are a few examples of how sweet it is to use your hands in the photos. The one on the left, we see those cute little details of baby's fingernails. Dad isn't doing the pose that I described in the last post, but that's okay. He started off by just pointing out one finger, and then I had him open up the rest of the hand. That way it didn't look like he was just pointing. And you can see that he can also use his middle finger to help control the back of the hand too. And not only does it, make your hand look a little bit more natural instead of just like an awkward pointing position, but also keeps the control of baby's hand as well. The photo in the middle has both mom and dad's hands in there. If you're good at taking photos one-handed, you can try this on your own. Otherwise, you can ask someone who's visiting to help you snap a pic if you're interested in doing this one. You can see just how sweet it is to have baby's head resting in their parents' hands. As you can see, when you're looking at this photo, you're just seeing the sweetness of the baby. You're not looking at the wrinkles in parents' hands or any imperfections that you might be seeing when you look at your hands. Really, the focus is about scale and just how tiny they look. Lastly, take a look at the photo on the right. Mom moved both of her hands down from baby's head to his shoulders. And I really love this one because this is great to look back on and look at your hands and realize just how small he was. It's just incredible. He's so much bigger now. But at one point, she could just hold him in her hands like that. And that's why I want you to use your hands in some of these photos. That is it for this video. So we are at the action steps. Make sure you watch the video below to learn how to swaddle for photos. Practice swaddling on a stuffed animal, a doll, or if you have a friend who has a baby and they're willing to let you practice, you can practice a little bit on them. And don't stop your practicing at swaddle. Practice being a hand model too. I know it might seem a little silly holding a doll like you would a baby, but it's a good way for you to kind of practice to see what you like and, how you move around naturally. That way you can get those beautiful natural shots. So get to practicing, and I will see you in lesson 4.